So Trump is attempting ethnic cleansing, okay? In that case, ethnic cleansing has already happened. Ethnic cleansing is when you use force or inactive force or indirect force in order to move somebody from where they live to another country. Here, as you can see, Social Security lists thousands of living immigrants as dead to prompt them to leave, AP sources say. Now, what has happened is now I don't know much about this issue so far. However, what I can tell you guys is apparently their social security numbers are being moved to a database that's exclusively reserved for dead people, or at least a list that's exclusively reserved for dead people. Now, the reason why this is so horrifying is because this is not just disappearing by sending ICE officers over to your house and deporting you on a plane. No, something like this will allow Trump to reach more and more people without actually contributing a lot of money or resources, like hiring ICE officers in order to deport somebody. Because what is happening here is you effectively has been deemed invisible, legally. Without a social security number, what are you? What social security number is one of the most important pieces of identification in the United States. Every single year, hundreds of millions of people use it. Almost every single American uses it. You do it for forms, you do it for job applications, you do it for welfare, you do it for many other things, traveling, etc., etc. Now, this is what makes it especially heinous. By simply cutting off the ability for people to live in the United States financially, you are cutting off the means in which they can live at all. By doing so, they cannot feed themselves. They cannot take care of themselves when they're sick. Can you imagine if you have a family member under this list and your social security number has just been deemed you are dead? Can you imagine? And that family member has some long-term condition like cancer? Or it's your mom or your dad who has, well, let's just say encroaching dementia. What would you do then? So this is what makes this especially heinous. And again, I want to emphasize this. The cruelty is the point. The entire point is cruelty. There is no justice to be done here. There is no amazing, redeeming plus that we're getting. The government isn't getting tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars from this. No, it's just cruelty, plain and clear. And they're targeting brown people. Okay, let's read through this article and yeah, let's take a look at it, okay? The Trump administration has moved to classify more than 6,000 living immigrants as dead, canceling their social security numbers and effectively wiping out their ability to work or receive benefits in an effort to get them to leave the country, according to two people familiar with the situation. The move will make it much harder for those affected to use banks or other basic services where social security numbers are required. It's part of a broader effort by President Donald Trump to crack down on immigrants who were allowed to enter and remain temporarily in the United States under programs instituted by his predecessor, Joe Biden. The Trump administration is moving the immigrants' names and legally obtained social security numbers to a database that federal officials normally use to track the deceased, right? According to the two people familiar with the moves and their ramifications, they spoke on the condition of anonymity Thursday night because the plans had not yet been publicly detailed. The officials said stripping the immigrants of their social security numbers will cut them off from many financial services and encourage them to self-deport and abandon the United States for their birth countries. Now, I actually find this rather funny. And by funny, I mean it is actually deathly cruel because without a social security number, do you guys think it would be harder or easier to leave the country without a passport? If you are somebody who is an immigrant and you traveled here and you don't really have an American passport or anything like that, wouldn't not having a social security number make it kind of harder? I can totally see maybe, for example, you can actually fly or travel cross borders using your driver's license, a passport card, a social security card, or any other means of clarified identification. However, a lot of immigrants do not have access to any of these forms of identification. Without any form of identification and without a valid social security number, you can totally find them being maybe barred at the border, maybe barred at the airport, maybe arrested by ICE, and then maybe deported to a death prison. So, of course, this is a very worrying article to read. Let's continue. It wasn't immediately clear how the 6,000 plus immigrants were chosen, but the Trump White House has targeted people in the country temporarily under Biden-era programs, including more than 900,000 immigrants who entered the U.S. using that administration's CBP One app. Now, this is why I say cruelty is the point. The reason why I argue cruelty is the point is because it seems as though the Trump administration is specifically targeting immigrants that were received under Biden. This isn't for the good of the nation. This isn't to capture MS-13 gang members. This is specifically so then Trump can spite Biden, because Biden is living in Trump's brain rent-free. Because every single time Trump wakes up in the morning and goes to sleep at night, he is thinking of nobody but Biden. He wakes up sobbing in the middle of the night because he can't get over the fact that Biden beat him in 2020. And he never got another chance to beat Biden again. I swear to you, upon my very soul, that this is out of spite. This is out of hatred. This administration made out of hatred, made out of spite, made out of vengeance, cannot last. It is an administration that is bent on disaster. It is an evil administration that is out here to destroy the human race. It is anti-Western civilization. It is anti-Eastern civilization. It is anti-human civilization. On Monday, the Department of Homeland Security revoked the legal status. Oh, shoot. You know what? Sorry. I'm going to switch this to Dark Reader. My bad. On Monday, the Department of Homeland Security revoked the legal status of the immigrants who used that app. They had generally been allowed to remain in the U.S. for 2 years with work authorization under presidential parole authority during the Biden era, but are now expected to self-deport. Now, do you see how it's kind of funny how all of these immigrants who has been authorized to work, who are expected to work, are being deported? These people who are legal in the country, they are legal because unless you have evidence to prove otherwise, unless you have evidence to move them into the database of the dead, they're legal. They're legal immigrants. By all means, they're not even undocumented. They're not undocumented. They're not illegal immigrants. They didn't smuggle here on some truck or bus. They came here likely to seek asylum and better opportunities. To what? To seek a better life. The cruelty is the point. They're working. There's no proof of any criminal history. The cruelty is the point. A representative from the Social Security Administration did not respond to a request for comment on the news that living immigrants were being classified as dead. The agency maintains the most complete federal database of individuals who have died, and the file contains more than 142 million records, which go back to 1899. The Privacy Act allows the Social Security Administration to disclose information to law enforcement in limited circumstances, which includes when a violent crime has been committed or other criminal activity. DHS and the Treasury Department signed a deal this week that would allow the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, the people who handle your taxes, to share immigrants' tax data with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, for the purpose of identifying and deporting people legally in the U.S. The agreement will allow ICE to submit names and addresses of immigrants inside the US illegally to the IRS for cross verification against tax records. The acting IRS commissioner, Melanie Craw, who has served in that capacity since February, stepped down over that deal. In March, meanwhile, a federal judge temporarily blocked a team charged with cutting federal jobs and shrinking the government led by billionaire Elon Musk from Social Security systems that hold personal data on millions of Americans, calling their work there a fishing expedition. Just about right. Sky Perryman, president and CEO of Democracy Forward, an advocacy group that has challenged various Trump administration efforts in court, said her organization would likely sue over the Social Security numbers as well, once more details become available. This president continues to engage in lawless behavior, violating the law and abusing our systems of checks and balances, Perryman said. And it's really as plainly as that, because how else could you possibly define this other than breaking the law? For such a party that preaches about law and order, we can see them exactly propping up the kind of wannabe tyrant that want to act like a mafia boss over and over and over again. And then we have people in the administration and people on the conservative side praising the fact that Trump is acting like a mafia boss. Is this acceptable? Is this okay? I wouldn't say so.